You know how they're kind of doing a Joanne fabric right now? You know how they purchased the government and now they're gutting it to sell to the highest bidder? It's not gonna they don't want it to exist. It's not going to continue to exist. The global economy collapses. How does the United States government continue? I'm Lexander, and I'm a host on The Line at Q&A Line here on YouTube. We have a show on there called TACUS, Transatlantic Call-In Show. You call in and talk about trans issues. A lot of the time we try to take confrontational calls from people who are like, I don't like trans people in sports or whatever, but we also sometimes take friendly calls. This one is a little bit more along those lines. We have a difference of opinion, but this person wanted to know about, why would it be a bad thing if there was like an official trans designation? Like in the same way that we have a gender marker on our birth certificate, or we select what race we are when we're applying for scholarships or whatever. And so this is that conversation.
Melanie, she, her from Pennsylvania, wanting to talk to Lux about something that happened in the comment section. So I'll let you two go for it.
What's up, Melanie? Lay it on me. What did you want to talk about?
Hi, nice to phone meet you, Lux. I watch a lot of your content, and good to talk to you again, Ben. I was the anti-theist that struggles with treating Christians equally a couple weeks ago with Aron
Fun.
So thank you very much, by the way. So I'm Melanie. I'm a 35-year-old, like, very bricky trans lady. And I'm calling to make, like, I guess, a case for an official government recognized, like, transgender status. And I guess I'll be referencing, like, Black American history, women, and, like, gay men as comparisons of other marginalized social groups that, like, are constructed socially, like social construct groups. And I guess I say this from the perspective that, like, I'll never fully pass. As I said in your comment section, I have to custom order my size 15 fucking shoes. So, like, that's always going to be a dead giveaway. It is. At least they're comfortable, though. They're Nike, so we're getting what we pay for. They're cute as fuck. So, yeah, like, for the conservative haters that are going to care for whatever reason, that's going to be a dead giveaway. My obnoxiously long fingers are a dead giveaway. So, like, for others like myself, it leaves us in a situation where no matter how fish we may appear or how well we may pass, there's always going to be that, like, stigma that we don't break out from. So essentially, I guess what I'm claiming is that transgender people being recognized as official by the government would come with perks and put us on a path similar to other marginalized groups who have seen improvement in their situation socially. And some of the benefits would be like state healthcare inclusion, public bathroom safety, protections in the workplace, which we have some, but if in government buildings and state parks we can say faggot because and like fucking, freak show and tranny, like the Marjorie Taylor Greene shit, we would, like, those are some of the things that are exclusive right now to trans people. And we would eliminate some of that state-funded medical research. There would be education curriculum inclusion, which would lead toward a more normalized status. And we would also probably help a lot of kids like myself who didn't understand what we were experiencing at a young age and save us a lot of hardship. So that's kind of the premise. And I guess my wife had a similar argument that I think you were trying to get at, is that that information can be weaponized. And you cited a very good example with the pink triangle, that it was weaponized against other people. But I guess my statement to that would be that they're already being weaponized like that. Like, I am on an FBI watch list already, just by default, and so are you. So is Ben. So
I mean, I would say then, go ahead. Like, in response to that, like, because I think that you've basically just laid it out exactly how I feel, is like, you've pointed out that we, being labeled that way, like, we're still being treated badly regardless of whether we're being labeled that way. But also, like, prior to this most recent Trump thing, trans people were also receiving protections and being educated about in schools and stuff like that. Like, the positive representation type things were also happening in the absence of, like, an enshrined specific transgender marker. Because in the United States, at least, like, the way that we've generally handled this has been by just saying, like, sex discrimination isn't permitted of any kind. So, like, instead of creating a discrete separate group for trans people, it's just basically going like, well, if you wouldn't discriminate against a woman for being married to a man, then it's sex discrimination if you discriminate against a man for being married to a man. Or if you wouldn't disallow a woman to wear a skirt at work, but you would disallow a man to wear a skirt at work, then that's sex-based discrimination. So I just don't really see like a lot of utility in creating like a designated group. And I can also point to other examples where like racialization falls short. People were complaining about Zoran Mamdani, and the way that he filled out a particular like race application thing when he was getting into college. And it's like, well, because these things are like all fall apart a little bit. Um, at the edges, like, is he Indian or is he South African? Like kind of both, in different ways. So I just think like, yeah, I can see the benefit of these things, but I can also see them being either not necessary or misused in a way that seriously hurts people. And I guess yeah, I mean, like, we already have legal protections, and there are already states that say, like, trans people specifically, like Washington State, I think, uh, changed something in their health system where it's like, or maybe it was Oregon, where you're like required to include gender affirming care for trans people in the health coverage. Um, so I guess I just don't really see what additional benefit there would be without the serious potential detriments to that kind of thing. Because, like you said, Melanie, I changed my legal sex on my driver's license in Kansas. My name is on Chris Kobach's desk as a person who did that. So even within the
Yeah.
official system that we have now, just changing our sex from one binary to the other, even without a specific gender marker, like the state already has a record of that. And so I just don't see, what other benefit you're going to see from that. And I would love for Ben to chip on this because I already kind of said most of this in the comments. So Ben, if you have anything you wanted to add, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the full conversation in the comments, but I tend to take Lux's position. I do see risk in making us an additional group, and it's kind of similar limitations and utility. Um, Kind of one thing would be like if there was significant use in like lawsuits, if it would be easier to have like class action lawsuits. But I feel like some of the other things that Lux mentioned would also be able to apply and still be able to be utilized, like under the sexism point. So um, I don't have a whole lot to weigh in on that, but that's kind of my thoughts, I guess.
Yeah. What kind of benefits are you looking to get from this kind of system, Melanie?
Mainly just widespread education and like no matter what 50 like for myself living in Ohio previously, I had I lost my career, I lost over half my income, like all of that shit hit all at one time. Um, and then I moved to Pennsylvania where things are a lot different and all of a sudden my options open up tremendously. So I guess for myself and other people, I don't know that, like, let's say in a state or a region in the US somewhere, some territory, someone finds out they're trans and now they have to figure out logistically how to, like, completely transplant their lives to make this possible versus in all 50 states and US territories, this is recognized that this is a real thing. And like I look at other marginalized groups like African American, or not, I guess is probably the wrong distinction, but Black Americans, or in this case, like we could look at women or gay people. In all of those situations, that was a group that was targeted. And as like, at least when I was a kid anyway, I didn't learn anything about transgender people. I didn't know what gender spectrum was until I started looking into transitioning myself. Um, so I was like in my 30s when I started learning about all this stuff. So that would be, I guess, the idea is more normalized life for us, probably stop some kids who experience a lot of these gender affirming problems that we did, and I guess save them from that. And the other thing would be that if we're getting state funded research in that way, that would be another benefit that would be possible. And I guess my other question would be, like, for me, intersectionality, like I learned about intersectionality, I think in the last like probably year and really what that was. And it centers around like equity. So I'm trying to think of like if equitable equality is what ultimately we're going for, they look at these other groups like women who couldn't, get credit or own property. There were Black Americans who, as the decades and centuries go by, get better and better off, and it's still not correct, but they're making progress. And gay people as well. So my question would be, where are we different in that way? And I'm not trying, I guess I'm asking a challenging question, but I'm not trying to be combative or aggressive. So please, I hope I'm checking my tone, but
Are you asking if like
what
an
makes
official
us
designation exists for other groups? Why should there specifically not be a specific designation for trans people?
right? Because I think we would all argue and support the idea that as those groups become more and more recognized and protected, their situations improve. Now, are they the same as cisgendered white straight men? No, especially if you're Christian. So I
Well,
think, but that's really
I
what
guess
we're
I
trying
would
to go
push back a
for
little
all
bit
people.
on, like, especially like of a directly comparable group, homosexuals. Like, we have this thing now in some laws that says like you can't discriminate based on sexual orientation. And so in some cases, usually we also have like gender identity gets included in that. But there's not like any registry of gay people. It's like I don't even know if that's a question they ask on the census. I've never filled out a census before. Um so
I haven't
it's like
either.
those protections still exist and the education still exists for gay people in the absence of any kind of formal legal definition. Um, and like I agree with you, Melanie, that we should be doing more outreach and education. I just don't see the connection specifically between having that group be enshrined and having the education because we've been doing the education. Um, and we also have like this cultural suppression of the idea, which, like, again, there are places where there are protections for gender identity explicitly, and people still get fired for being trans because, like, the legal group as it exists is like you only get so much legal protection if you can't prove it. You can't well, because like, okay, my boss wrote me up 3 times in a row for bullshit that my coworkers all get away with, but technically there's a paper trail of me be doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, even if that's how I was trained or that's how my coworkers do it. So, and like we don't have the money to push back on that. So I'm just saying, like, even in places where these protections are enshrined, we still have discrimination and people still do hate crimes and don't get prosecuted for it for bullshit reasons that people will make up. So I'm like, I'm agreeing with you that we should do more education and outreach. I just don't see why like having an enshrined legal group beyond just saying like you can't discriminate against people for gender identity, like does that feel sufficient to you, that just like including gender identity when we're making those lists of things that you can't discriminate for, like the equal rights amendment passes and you're like, that's fine and I'm happy now?
I think the practical, I mean, like, yes, it's there, but practical enforcement, as you and I will both agree with, is shit. I'm evidence of that myself. That was my entire last job experience, was proving against transphobes that I was doing the exact same things they were and getting out of write-ups. Like that,
Mm.
literally, that was most of my employment for that company. Don't work at Sheets if you're trans.
But I don't
So
know if
Call
like
any of
out.
that's going to
that
improve
being
with the designation. I don't know if any of that's still going to improve with that, like especially in the higher risk areas like you're mentioning. I think it's going to be a similar situation where Ohio will find ways to get around that and still will keep on keeping on like they have been. And then states like California, Oregon, et cetera, are going to keep doing what they're doing. Like I don't think the distinction is going to make much of a difference in the states that are already problems. I think they're going to keep being problems.
I know this is a short video and I'm interrupting in the middle of it, but I just have to let you know this is supported by you, the patrons especially. But anybody who donates, if you want to direct donate once, luxander.net/donate, that's fine. But patrons at patreon.com/luxander get little extra things, little bits here and there that not everybody else gets to see. So consider supporting me over there. And if you want something for your money that's a little bit more physical, you can get a mug or a hoodie or a pair of booty shorts on my store linked down below. Thanks.
So what would like, as someone who is like, I'm going to be on disability soon, so I'm looking to find something to put my time in that's meaningful to me. I'm trying to get more into like the activism side of things. So if that, like, I do think still that it would mandate that the government puts a lot more funding into transgender research, which of course we know cis people love anyway. They just don't like admitting that they use it.
I
Um,
actually want to jump
so
off that
that
really
being
quick, Melanie, to ask Ben. There has
said,
been lots of publicly funded research about trans people. Maybe not lots, but there has been, right?
Yeah.
Like there are NIH
Yeah.
studies about trans people. So in the absence of a protected enshrined group, we still have had funding directed toward that research.
Yeah. Maybe not as much now with
Well, yeah,
RFK
now.
Jr. in charge, but yeah.
The last
But
20
before him,
years.
yeah. Yeah.
what
So it
could
just
I
seems like,
do to make a positive difference? Um, like in the sense of it's 100 years from now, if we continue doing this thing, we will see improvement, and someone not named me or you will have a better situation.
yeah. I mean, from my perspective, and I don't know, you've watched some of my content. I don't usually post this in the videos so much as I talk about it on stream a lot, but the global economy is capital G going to collapse by 2040. We are on track for that. So I think what people should do is focus on the local. You live in Pennsylvania. I know a trans person who tried aggressively to get me to move to Pennsylvania instead of Oregon. So there's plenty of trans people there. You're in a place that is going to have a sustained agricultural output over the next 50 years. So you're already situated in a place where like you don't have to worry as much about like climate collapse, which is going to be a growing problem as well. But my thing is just like local, 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 local. If you want to change the laws in Pennsylvania to include gender identity protections, that makes perfect sense to me. If you want to like volunteer, direct your resources, emotional, financial resources, your time to like local youth organizations and things like that, getting involved in a community garden or a co-op, like a sharing food co-op, volunteer your time in your neighborhood because like we don't really need to worry about the federal stuff. It's gonna just, how they're kind of doing a Joanne fabric right now. You know how they purchased the government and now they're gutting it to sell to the highest bidder. It's not gonna, they don't want it to exist. It's not going to continue to exist. The global economy collapses. How does the United States government continue? It's going to balkanize. This is just what I see happening based on the research that I have access to. If you want to corroborate any of this, I recommend looking into the Limits to Growth report from MIT 1972. So just local, just care about people that you can actually physically see in your life and worry less about passing national protections. I know that that's a really feels like a doomer thing to say. I'm just being realistic, everybody. Please don't assume that I mean this to be like, stop trying. I do mean I want you to try hard. I want you to just try hard at like local stuff with people directly near you because I think that's going to make a much bigger difference longer term. Like we need to start shoring up our local communities against the idea that there's going to be supply chain collapse. So like what are you going to do to eat? How is your water infrastructure going to be maintained? How is your electrical infrastructure going to be maintained? We need to start living like anarchists now before it happens to us whether we want it to or not.
As long as we're not transing anyone's gender, I think the water will flow just fine with or without the economy. Don't be silly.
Well, I mean, it requires money to pay people to work on it unless we overnight flip to a system where plumbers no longer owe rent. So I'm just saying, like, there is like an infrastructure problem, and that this relies on interstate commerce. And if the federal government collapses and states that are red states decide that they don't want to fuck with blue states anymore, like there's not going to be a mutual cooperation on that level, and that there are going
That
to
makes sense.
be
Okay.
large scale issues with infrastructure and supply lines and stuff like that. So I know it sounds really doomer. People in the comments are saying I'm being pessimistic. I'm not. This is me confronting reality and how much it sucks and me being real about it to the extent that I can be. If you want to look into the research, everybody, I recommend you do it. Because if we're still thinking in this way that like, like the United States government and the global economy are going to be basically functioning the way that they are now in the next 20 years, like we're going to be blindsided. And so we need to start getting prepared now. People don't like to hear me talk about this though. So
Well, I like the idea of localized stuff. Like, okay, so Mondani, I think, is a good example. Like, I hope he fucking does well and New York City does well so we can get
yeah.
some, like, modern day socialism running through. Like, at least there's what is it called? Not a pamphlet. I can't fucking remember the word. Whatever. there's like
I can't help you.
a template. That's the word. There's a template for like, hey, this can be a successful model, and this is what it could look like on a broader scale. So like in that sense, that's essentially what I'm trying to get at with this call, is hopefully get to a spot where we are thinking for some of our legislators that are not doing a great job thinking for ourselves, and we can present some kind of case that makes sense to all parties, and all parties can win and advance further. And if that looks like Philadelphia, which is a pretty trans progressive city and a pretty trans progressive state that's, like you said, going to take care of itself, that's why we have such good healthcare here. So like, I think that probably makes sense. Like if we display and demonstrate that it works on a local level, the odds of it being taken seriously at a state or national level, I think goes up tremendously.
Yeah. Invest your time and emotional energy into mutual aid and, helping people relocate if they're in shitty places. Like I know, like I said, I know a trans woman who is like running an organization in Pennsylvania. Oh my gosh, it's not the Rainbow Railroad because that's the international one. I can't remember what it's called right now. I feel terrible for it, but I know that there's like groups in Pennsylvania that are working toward relocating people, so that you all can have like a shored up trans community there to protect one another and to make those cultural changes. So yeah, just hammer hard on the local and what you can control and the people in your life that you can directly help. And I think that we will feel better. And like you said, we will be demonstrating like functionally how a more, I mean, I hate coming back to the term anarchist, but that literally is like a communistic or anarchist framework where if the systems are not going to serve us, then we have to serve each other.
Well, I
Did we lose you,
appreciate both of
Melanie?
you.
No.
Is
Okay,
there
there you
anything
go.
else? I was going to say, is there anything else? I know there's a pause too. Like I try not be I listen to a lot of these, so I try not be the caller that's like, we get stuck for 10 seconds trying to give the other one the right away. I just like to
Yeah,
give the
I
pause.
appreciate it.
Um,
Yeah.
so as far as like, yeah, I think that covers most of my questions. I'll do what I usually do with these calls and listen back to it and take some notes and think about it some more and hopefully have some more to expand upon. This is kind of like, it just keeps every time I talk to you guys, I kind of like take it in a new direction and I feel like I'm growing. And I just want to say thanks to everyone at the line. And it's always a pleasure talking to you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Melanie, and I appreciate that, you're a fan of me and of the line and that my presence on the line hopefully makes it a good place for people who are fans of chaotic queer weirdness. So, yeah, thank you so much for calling. And call back if you have any more questions or follow-up thoughts later.
Will do. Thank you, Lex. Thank you, Ben. Good to talk to you again.
That's the end of the call. Thank you so much for watching it. I didn't hold any ill will toward this caller. I just figured it would be interesting and maybe informative for us to share this conversation. Maybe someone else in my comments has had this thought before and they needed to know like why we don't think it's a good idea to have an official trans designation that the government can keep track of. So yeah, hope that you enjoyed this call. Don't forget that you can catch us live at 2 p.m. on Thursdays with Takis. We have all kinds of other shows on the line, but this is the trans call-in show. So if you ever have questions or disagreements, I do answer the comments here. But if you really want to take like a longer time, I always encourage people to call in. And also don't forget to click like and subscribe. And YouTube especially likes it if you leave long comments, like a sentence or two, or if you hit the share button. They also really love it when you do that. So thanks to my patrons and everybody who supports the channel. Real quick, type pineapple in the chat if you watched all the way to the end of the video. It'll be our secret. Happy New Year, and thank you so much to my patrons, especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvag, Untitled One, Pinky Bimbo, In a Box, Sarah A., Amanda B., Michelle Winter, Athiette, Nova, Danielle McDonald, Kevin Young, Suzanne Maynard, Liam Hodgson, Jamie Jam, Michelle Frateroli, Logan, Celeste, Mr. Atheist, Wellington Marcus, Desi Quiche, Nadia Yvette Chambers, Ing Marie, Ali T, Kawhi Esquire, Bo E, Art, Neurospiky, JT, and Solomon Kane.